Commencing countdown.
3, 2, 1.
This is the contracting experience, connecting government contracting professionals to the world around them through conversations with acquisition influencers, insights into evolving hot topics, and sharing lessons learned from the field.
In this episode, we sit down with Chelsea Fulham and Abby Dorn, who are Air Force contracting professionals doing education with industry fellowships. Chelsea's work with Amazon and Abby's work with Anduril really got them thinking about how collaborative industry is with its partners, and how government acquisition may better take advantage of opportunities to collaborate with industry to meet its goals. As part of their EWE capstone project, Chelsea and Abby are working with data analytics students from UC Berkeley to develop a tool that will allow companies doing business with the government a vehicle to provide feedback on the process and identify key areas where improvements could enhance the process of meeting Air Force missions. Chelsea and Abby share why this collaboration is so important to what we do and the place our country holds in the world. If you're a current vendor or potential vendor doing business with the government, go to the show notes for this podcast episode and click the link to Chelsea and Abby's survey in order to share your feedback. Welcome, Chelsea and Abby, to the podcast.
Thanks, Amber.
Yeah,
so happy to be here.
For sure. All right, so you both have been participating in the Air Force Institute of Technology's Education with Industry program for the last about 7 months. Can you tell us what you were doing before the program and why you wanted to get involved in working with industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start off with this one. So I have been in the Air Force since 2005, and I've been in contracting since 2012. So that's what I was doing prior to coming to EWE. I was a contracting officer working at Hanscom Air Force Base, specifically working on the TAC-P portfolio at a program office. So, I was working with a lot of processes that have been there for a very long time. So I saw a lot of opportunities for innovation. And truthfully, our organization at Hanscom was extremely motivated for innovation and to update things, to go faster, to be more relevant. So I was introduced into that world when I was at Hanscom, and it felt so refreshing to me, and I got really excited about it and motivated. So when I got accepted to the EWE program, it was just like that ball kept rolling. And so when I came over to EWE, I got lucky and came to Amazon, which is an extremely innovative company, and so that ball has been going full speed ahead since I got here.
That's great. What about you, Abby?
Yeah, so prior to being at Anduril Industries, I was stationed at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming. My career is in contracting is significantly shorter than Chelsea's. I've only been in for about 3 years total now. I was a non-prior when I joined. So I was at F.E. Warren. It's operational contracting, so kind of your day-to-day purchases between services, commodities, your government purchase cards, so your micro purchases there. So you get to really get to experience serving the missions of all your other customers on that base, which was actually really cool to see. Prior to joining the military, I had my master's in public accountancy from the University of South Dakota. I graduated in May 2012. The plan was to get into public accounting, and I did not. It was not my cup of tea. But then I moved to non-for-profit accounting, and I was there for about 4 years and absolutely loved it. It was an awesome group of people there. I learned a lot. The non-for-profit accounting, there's a little bit more complexity to it than just your normal operational accounting. There's a bit more rules and regulations you have to follow. So there's actually quite a few similarities with government accounting in that regard. So, but when it comes to EWE and why it interested me, for me, I'm very much a hands-on learner, and I like to see both sides of the stories. So for me, it was really intriguing to be able to go to one of industry's best, whatever company that was at the time, and and kind of learn the processes that they go through. So for me, from my standpoint, like if I can learn some of their processes are, some of their pain points, from my standpoint, okay, so once I'm back in the government, what can I do better? And so, yeah, I was excited to get in on it. And then I accidentally got chosen for Anduril. So it's been great. It's been awesome.
That's great. So, okay, so Chelsea, you said you're working with Amazon, and Abby, you said
Yes.
you're working at Anduril Industries. So what type of work are you guys doing there?
So for me at Amazon, when I first got to the company, I was working in Project Kuiper, which is essentially a little program office inside of Amazon dedicated to developing satellites for LEO. So that's low Earth orbit. I was really excited when I first got there, but I quickly noticed that it was very, very similar to the program office that I was in previously, and I wasn't really learning anything new and innovative that I was looking for. So I started kind of researching the company and looking for other opportunities to see if maybe there was somewhere I could laterally move so I could learn some of those more innovative processes that Amazon's so well known for. And I did get the opportunity to do that. I moved over to Scott, which is Supply Chain Optimization Technologies. And that team has been phenomenal. And I've really started to learn what I came to Amazon for. And what they do is they take the data that they get from working with these companies. They have Amazon has numerous vendors that they work with because anyone can go on their website and order a product from like millions of products, and so they have to coordinate with all of these companies. So what this group does is they work with each company and they take the data and they figure out, okay, what issues are they having? How can we help? They collaborate with them. They create products and processes to help with that relationship and solve those pain points and make it as seamless as possible. So it's exactly what I was looking for, essentially.
That's great. And also what I love about that, Chelsea, is you advocated for the experience that you wanted to get out of it, and you advocated for the experience that the Air Force needed you to get out of it. So I just want to throw that out there because I'm not sure that naturally people would do that if they're, put forward for this fellowship and put in this situation where it's unfamiliar territory, but I'm glad that you advocated for that. So I just wanted to shout you out for that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Amber. That was actually something that Jeff Lauder, the program coordinator for the EV program, had said to us when we first came in. He said, your experience is your experience and you need to advocate for yourself. And I was very, very passionate about making sure I got something that I could bring back to the Air Force. So thank you for that.
Yeah. All right, Abby, what have you been working on at Anduril?
So at Anduril, I'm on part of their what's called the mission operations team. And so what they do is they basically hold the entire acquisition process. So it goes from, a potentially interested party. So we're doing demos, doing kind of pilots, set up a pilot for them to test out Anduril's products, to getting the contract signed, to, through contract administration in the sense of, making sure that the product is continually working well for the customer. So I really get to see the entire acquisition process at Anduril, and it's been phenomenal to see. And so some of their products, it ranges from software to hardware, and some of their hardware is now ground-based intrusion to air and counter UAS stuff to now maritime vehicles. So it's an incredible company to be at. They've got some really cool products, and so it's just like learning every day. And yeah, so it's been pretty phenomenal.
Good. So Chelsea, can you tell us what has surprised you most in working with Amazon in your case?
Absolutely. So Amazon, I think, is well known for being an industry leader. And so I was really expecting for things to look extremely different than what I was used to in the Air Force. But there really were a lot of similarities, especially in Project Kuiper. So that was definitely something that surprised me right off the bat. But then, they had little things that I noticed along the way. One is they don't do PowerPoint at all, which I'm a big fan of. They actually write papers to have discussions on certain topics. And I think that's really interesting. It is pretty complicated to get set up and get rolling with that, but I feel like the conversations they have are a lot more collaborative, and they go into the details a lot more than with a PowerPoint. A PowerPoint is really one-way communication, and they have a lot of two-way communication with that. Also, they have a thing, and it's not really written down anywhere, but it's an idea of grassroots policy change. And I am a huge fan of this as well, because what this means is people at the lowest level, they are encouraged to make small changes within their scope, and then try to implement them and get a proof of concept that it works, and then elevate that to their leadership and say, hey, I did this, it works. So can we maybe do it at the next level? And then their leadership is encouraged to take that and continue to elevate and elevate and elevate until it gets to the most appropriate place. And it's something that happens seamlessly. And I don't know, it's just something like I was really excited about. I thought, wow, what a great way to like communicate change and like just naturally have it happen. So along with that, the company is extremely collaborative and innovative, which I think a lot of people would have assumed about Amazon. But I didn't really expect to see how much they collaborated and how innovative they are. So an example of this is each one of their organizations within Amazon. So you'll see like Amazon Prime, if you go on your Amazon account, here's a good example of this. There's all those different tabs where you have like video, and then you have the apparel, and then you have all these different categories of industry. So each one of those has like a little organization within itself, and they are all completely independent. They share Amazon's principles, and they all work together, at the very top, but they all have their own independent leadership, and they all can make their own policies and procedures for what works in their industry, which I thought was really interesting because, by using that structure, they can be a lot more flexible, and they can do what makes sense for the work that they're actually doing, not so much the work of just Amazon. So I think that's why you see a lot of times Amazon's able to be extremely flexible when changes happen in the market.
Okay. So, I mean, you talked about collaboration, you talk about flexibility, different ways of communicating things. So it's not just one person's just kind of communicating one way, instead of there's kind of like a collaboration and cross-talking. Abby, you and Chelsea are working together on your EWE capstone project. Can you tell us more about that project?
Yeah, of course. So from my standpoint, working at Anduril, they do a lot of like rapid iterations and like rapid improvement, constant improvement on things. And to me, that was kind of like my mindset, even before joining the military. It's just like, how can we improve this process? Being in accounting, you have a lot of rules and regulations, and how streamlined can you get things? And kind of having that mindset and wanting to actually like do something for our capstone project. Working with Chelsea seemed to fit really well, because I'm really big on improvement and education of things, and Chelsea was really big on like the communication. And so we were able to boil it down to, how do we open up the dialogue? How do we open up the communication between the government and our customers, like the vendors? So that was our kind of loose goal. And then Chelsea, she has a lot of experience, in Amazon. So how do we open up that line of communication? And so we focused on trying to get a vendor facing platform to where they are able to, essentially at their leisure, fill out a questionnaire that we've created to give us their feedback. So again, prior to the military, I used to be a professor. So I always hated the end of semester feedback forms because, some would say, hey, you're the best professor ever, or you directly followed by, you're the worst professor ever. Like, oh,
Yeah.
but why? Like, what is it that, that is positive, or what makes it negative? Like, if it's, I am like, what can I adjust,
Right.
for my teaching? And that's kind of the idea that we have had for this of, it's great that you think it's great working with the government, or, okay, you think it sucks working for the government, but like, what specifically is it? Like, we need these actionable data points to be able to improve. So Chelsea, would you like to input anything there?
Yeah, that was a great explanation, Abby. So I just wanted to add, for the Air Force, specifically in contracting, we noticed that there was a gap. There was an area that we didn't believe that contracting was taking advantage of. So what I mean by that is the industry knows so much more about their industry than the contracting units do and the acquisition community does. So yes, we have SMEs, we have such subject matter experts that we work with that know a lot, but these people's lives depend on these industries. And we didn't really see any way that the Air Force and the acquisition community was partnering with these industries to learn, like Abby was saying, like, what can we do better? What is being done out there that we don't know about? Share this information with us so we can improve, so we can get more in line with you, and we can sync, and we can and we can cut out some of these outdated processes, and we can try to be more flexible and responsive. Also, we're in a world right now that America isn't really seen as a number one anymore. Like, we no longer have near peers, we have peers, right? On the global scale. So we have to compete with that. We have to be able to show these companies, hey, it's worth doing business with us over them, to keep our companies in America and keep our industry base strong. So we also saw a big opportunity for, working with them and solving some of these long-standing pain points. If they tell us, hey, we've been experiencing this for the last 30 years, we've been a contractor for the
Right.
government, and we're like, yeah, let's work on it. And we really do work on it. We really do solve some of these things. I think it's going to do a lot for that relationship between industry and the government.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. And I think, like you talked about, where our standing is right now in the world. And I think we've been in a place where we felt maybe safe, whether it was right or wrong for us to feel safe, where we thought we were, and we were able to like do business a certain way. And to continue doing that just really doesn't make sense if we want to, stay competitive. So I think that's a good point. So Chelsea, how do you see your education with industry project impacting Air Force contracting, and what outcomes would you love to see?
Yeah, so my whole goal with coming to EWE was, like I said before, to bring something back to the career field that we could actually use, and not just come here and spend my time enjoying Amazon and learning for myself, but sharing that learning with my career field. And I think what Abby and I are working on is developing something that we can definitely bring forward and hopefully implement. So what I mean by that is, we are working with the National Security Innovation Network with the Capstone project, where they work with senior students at different colleges. So they partner these students with government personnel that have problem sets. And then the government personnel and the students work together, and they, because these students are in the career fields of data analytics or software engineers, they're able to actually create products for the government personnel to take with them and present to their leadership. So what we're doing right now is we're working with them to develop a potential MVP for our feedback tool, as Abby described it. And so what I mean by an MVP is a minimal viable product. When you're thinking about design thinking and engineering, something that can be implemented as soon as possible. And shout out to Roger Anderson for the design thinking. He did a little class with me, and he's phenomenal. But anyway, so our hope is that we're going to have an actual mock-up of what this feedback tool looks like, as well as a database of different pain points that we have gotten from a survey that we're sending out to some vendors, that we can present to our leadership and say, hey, this is what industry is saying to us on just this proof of concept MVP that we did. So imagine what we could do with the information we would get from a full-blown one. So our hope is that we're going to be able to bring this back, and that the acquisition community will see the value in it, and then they will adopt something like this. Even if it's not our product, they'll kind of see the value, and hopefully it will forever change our career field. And specifically speaking to, the contracting flight plan and our lines of effort for the future, this effort that we're doing, I think, directly covers all 4 of them. But specifically, it targets line of effort 1, which is building mission-focused business leaders, and line of effort 3, which is owning the high ground and optimizing the acquisition enterprise. So this is going to be an educational tool for not only our industry, but our contracting officers. And it's going to be pushing our acquisition enterprise to that next level where industry already is.
Right. Well said. I think that, you talk about your tool being helpful, and I think what the outcomes you could get from the tool, I think, will be helpful, as well as just the education around the fact that why you need the tool, and how just that knowledge and that awareness that you guys are getting from this experience, how that could help other people understand the why behind why this is so important. Abby, how can the workforce and industry help you and Chelsea with this capstone project?
So actually, Amber, I'm actually really excited today. I looked at our questionnaire, and we have well over 40 responses, and we've got some awesome data points already. But the number one thing is literally just filling out our questionnaire. The more helpful information that we can get, the better. Just for a quick taste of some of the information that we're getting in, I'm going to let the actual real data analytics students give the final results. But some of the common themes that I've been seeing has been the transition of people on the government side. So, we move around a lot. We rely on the civilians to, maintain that continuity. But sometimes with that transition, we lose those point of contacts for people. So, maybe that's something that we as a government can work on, is that transition piece on our side. But, an example that would be very difficult to change would be, the budget process.
Yeah.
So, you're going to get a wide range of, pain points, but I'm really excited to be able to dig into it further. And that was just me, scrolling through some of the answers for, 5 minutes. So I think with the help of the students, I think we'll get some great feedback and kind of next steps for what we can do to try and improve. So.
Yeah. And Abby, if I may, I just want to put out there, no comment is too small. We understand that there are a lot of low-hanging fruit is the best term I can use, but we understand that. But, the government doesn't really know what a lot of those are. Maybe an individual contracting officer does, because they've worked one-on-one with industry, representative, but that information has never been elevated and consolidated at a high level. So our leadership doesn't even know these small little pain points. They might have an idea, but they don't know for sure. So, anytime we get feedback, even if it's really small, it's helpful. I just want to throw that out there, because I feel like some people might be like, oh, my things are really not that important, but every little bit helps.
Well, and it helps validate what we think we know or what we don't actually know. So good point. And then where can listeners find the questionnaire?
So we can send that out to you. It's a very simple link. Currently, right now, it is just a Google form. We are not collecting any information on who's responding, so it is all 100% anonymous. So
Okay. All right. Yeah, we can talk afterwards, and if we can put a link in the show notes,
yeah,
if that would be helpful.
definitely. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. So to both of you, from what you've learned in working with Amazon and Anduril just far, like through the 7 months you've been there, what would you tell contracting professionals that haven't worked on the industry side before?
Yeah, so I think my number one thing that I would say to just anybody, really, not just contracting professionals, but anybody, is you have to keep on learning. You have to continuously push yourself, even if it's uncomfortable and maybe you feel like, yeah, I've learned all there is to know about this subject. The world changes and things change. So, just keep on pushing yourself, keep on educating yourself. While I've been at Amazon, I've worked with some extremely educated people, and I mean, they're for most rooms, they would be the smartest person in the room. And they are still going to school. They are still educating themselves. They are still pushing themselves every day. We had a simple conversation about Japanese language. One of the girls in the room knew Japanese, and then another one was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to learn Japanese now." And it was just so seamless. Like, I don't know, everyone I work with is so motivated to learn things, and I feel like it serves them so well. So I would definitely encourage everybody to just continue learning and pushing yourselves.
Great. What about you, Abby?
Yeah, that was kind of my first thing. Just that continual learning mindset. Where there's always changes. Again, being in contracting, rules are always changing. So you always got to stay on top of them. I think some of the biggest lessons I've learned is just keep that open communication. And, if I don't know the answer, who does, being willing to pass it on or anything like that, or, just that whole research standpoint. But also, like working at Anduril, for me, it's been interesting is, having that willingness to take some risks, to be, reasonably or professionally flexible in trying out different contract types. I would say that's been kind of a specific lesson at Anduril, because their contracting focus is different than others, but how can we utilize the rules that are currently in place to our benefit? One of the topics that we didn't really harp on too hard was, the goal to be faster. How do we exceed our adversaries, if you will, in speed? How do we improve our technological capabilities? It's by being faster, that rapid improvement process. So, like, how do we implement that into contracting? And I think that having that willingness to be, again, I'm totally made this term up, but professionally flexible, right? You don't want to be illegal. You don't want to say, hey, all of these rules are in our way, so we can't do anything. But so how do we work within those our rules and regulations that are currently in place? So
Yeah, and on that, Abby, you made me think of something I wish I would have said. But so the whole mindset that is in contracting, specifically, of the risk adverseness, I know that we're working to change that mindset. The leaders that are in place now, I know that they've communicated that to our career field multiple times, but I really cannot say this strongly enough, is that we really, really need to stop being risk adverse. We need to focus on moving forward in the smartest way possible, just like Abby said. And one of the things that I noticed in Amazon, which was really, really cool, was if they have a problem, right? They'll have a problem, and then instead of having one team dedicated to fixing that problem, they will make 10 teams, and they will have them all work the problem separately, and then they will have each one present a solution. And then they'll be like, okay, yeah, this one is the best solution. So that idea of redundancy, which is kind of frowned upon in the military, is actually capitalized on in Amazon to solve problems, which I thought was so cool. And I mean, why can't we do that?
Well, and to your point, so using Amazon as an example, they don't see it as failure. And then now let's all try to either like move past it or never do that again. And now we have to make a rule about it. They create teams to actually troubleshoot like what happened. And then they're going to learn from the situation that's going to maybe take them a whole nother place than they ever would have been if somebody didn't fail.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and they're not attached to like the answer. They don't have the answer already, and they're trying to get to that answer. They have no idea. They're just like, okay, well, let's figure out what happens. Let's do it all different ways, and we'll learn and we'll fail and we'll get better.
Right. And so that takes a culture change, right?
Yes.
To make that happen. And you pointed out, leadership is saying that they support that, and definitely like you want leadership to be able to support it if you're going to do it. But it also starts with like the one person that's actually listening, which hopefully there's more than one, but like each person that's listening to this conversation, if they can allow themselves to fail and still like decide instead of feeling bad about it, I'm actually going to figure out like, how can I learn from this? Or what would I've done? What would I do next time now? Or how can I troubleshoot it? That's really where culture change starts, is with the one person, because when the one person does it, then more starts doing it, and the teams start doing it, and organizations start doing it. And so it's really kind of reframing what failure means. And if you allow yourself to open up to the possibility that failure is actually a success, because it can lead to a whole nother thing that you never would have seen before.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, Amber.
Well, thanks. Well, I really appreciate you both being on here, and I love the perspective that you guys are bringing, and the fact that you guys are doing this fellowship, and it's important for the Air Force and what you guys are bringing back with your capstone project. But these perspectives that you're bringing back and what you guys are going to do with that, just in your daily, the way you guys do your daily jobs after this is just as important. So I want to thank you again for being on the podcast today.
Yeah. Thank you, Amber.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been fun.
If you have suggestions for topics or people to interview or feedback on the podcast, you can submit those at thecontractingexperience@gmail.com. I want to thank you all for listening to the Contracting Experience podcast. Until next time, keep connecting to the world around you.